Hoş geldiniz diye. Bugünler biz Pricewaterhouse House şirketiyle birlikte artık yeni teşebbüslere başlayacağız. Bu dönemleri Azerbaycan 2020 adlı beynelhalk konferans gerçekleştirildi. Ülke rehberliği iştirak etti ve diyebilirim ki bu yıl ərzində keçirilən ən böyük və ən əhəmiyyətli tədbirlərimizdən və Pricewaterhouse şirkəti ilə biz gələn ildə bir neçə müştərək tədbir həyata keçirəcəyik. Bu tədbirə xüsusilə təşkil buyurmuş bizim qonağımız Sturesson bugün xüsusi olaraq Azərbaycanda özəl şirkətlər üçün bir masterclass razılıq verir. Yəni bu tecrübe paylaşması kifayet kadar nadir hallardan biri bu Azerbaycan'da başlıyor ve biz çok şadız ki bizim devletimizi kabul ederiz ve bugün burada iştirak ederiz. İnanıyorum ki bugün bu bir saat bir sürede məlumat paylaşımı edəcəkdir. Biz hem özümüz hem de ki Azerbaycan'da olan özel şirketlerin nümayendeleri cəmləşəcəklər məlumatlarını və fəal iştirak etməyə çağırıram, suallarını bilirəm çağırıram. Çünki doğrudan da çox təcrübəli və bilikli insan.
Mahir bizə bəzi məlumatlar verəcək qonağımız haqqında, daha sonra isə artıq təqdimat başlayacaq. Mən bəri başdan üzr etmək istəyirəm ki, sona qədər iştirak edə bilməyəcəm, amma yenə də Strateji Araşdırmalar Mərkəzinə hər hansı bir sualınız olsa,
we had this gentleman, this prominent person, yesterday in our conference to do with Azerbaijan 2020, Vision into the Future. And today we decided to use this opportunity and have this person for our master class for our public and private sector. And he's going to give his speech in English. I'm sure you all know English, and his presentation is going to be about corporate governance and a little bit about corporate social responsibility in public and private companies. Mr. Jan Sturesson is a Swedish national, is a partner at PwC and the global leader for the government and public services industries. In this capacity, he is responsible for all strategic work with regards to public sector in all countries where PwC is present. He is a graduate from University of Lund, Master of Science from main subjects of economy, law, and political science in 1982. Since 1983, he has held different positions at PwC, such as consultant PwC Sweden, Chief Auditor Manager PwC Sweden, Executive Director South Region Sweden, Director of Marketing at PwC Sweden, Global Leader of PwC's Global Cities of the Future Network, and his current position. He is in direct liaison with ministries, presidents, CEOs, and policymakers, and is often invited for his creative point of view and knowledgeable touch. Jan excels in policy advice, strategic benchmarking and trend analysis, vision and strategy development, analysis and planning for national, regional, urban, city development and growth, as well as development of cities and regions, social intelligence. His work has been carried out on all continents and in many countries. Besides, he was a member of World Economic Forum and its Global Agenda Councils, chairman of the Globe Award Sustainable City Award, strategic senior advisor for Skolkovo Institute of Technology, which is a project aiming at creating a Russian Silicon Valley with education, university, research, and development as key focus areas. Strategic senior advisor Vision 2050 for a major Asian city. He has lots of publications also. He is a writer of 15 published books. Mr. Sturesson, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. And it's a great honor to be here, I must say. I feel very privileged. Should I go with this as well?
Yeah.
I feel very privileged to be here in Azerbaijan and Baku. It was great to meet all the people yesterday, and here we are today and trying to figure out some thoughts for the future. I think we should do like a kind of a half-hour presentation, and then we have an opportunity to discuss. We are not so many, so we can really discuss about the various topics. So please take note, or you can also just raise your hand if you have a comment during my presentation. So let's kick off and say, well, I think you all know that Sweden this year will have the Eurovision Song Contest because what's happened here last year. Thank you. We have, in just my city, happens to be selected as the city who are having the great event, which is a part of the future. Why so? Because the competition between cities who have the opportunity to arrange such an event is huge, even inside a country like Sweden. So they didn't pick Stockholm, they didn't pick Gothenburg, they picked the third one, Malmö, in the south. The international region connected with a bridge to Copenhagen, which also is a sign in the sky that the new future is very global, it's very regional, it's very international. Having said that, I want us to check through some corporate governance issues. First one is very important for me, and that is about, very often I meet people around the globe who think that it's kind of the same with government and private sector. And as you know here in the room, it's not. It's very, very different, because the objective for public sector is the service who is the objective, and the money from the taxpayers as the mean. But in the private sector, in every shareholdings act, it says, go for profit to the shareholders. And so it should be, because that private system is the bloodstream in a body. Without a good, solid private sector, no really solid public sector. Because if not a good situation with jobs and so on, there will be no tax base. But the point is, it's totally different of logic. Money could be the objective or the mean. But as you can see on this slide, the state-owned entities are right in the midst of these two logics. They have, I would say, a very twisted, double-edged, I would say, motivation and mission to accomplish both profit for the owner, the state, but also to create value for the citizens, for the people living in the country. And the question is, as the number one corporate governance issues, if we own companies as a state or as a city, like a port or an airport, whatever it is, what's the mixture of the result being evaluated? Finance, social, innovation, jobs, etc., and environment and sustainability. That is the number one issue, which I think very often is not being debated. I go around the globe and I see at this, just talk about, oh, profit is too low, and we have to increase the profit, okay? I say, why? What's the purpose? Why do you own this aircraft company? Why do you own this port? Why do you do, etc., etc.? So bear that in mind. Okay. Corporate governance is a terminology which came into the world, I would say, 1989. US, California, CalPERS, Pension Foundation, and green mail operations between CEO and operating directors in the company, and they started a debate, how should we try to govern, manage and control these pension funds? And as you know as well, in that process, Orange County went bankrupt because they put all this money in in the CalPERS Pension Foundation. That is, when I look into science, the starting of the corporate governance terminology. And it's about, as we all know, the owner, the board, the CEO, and the auditor. The four different actors, how they interlink, how they make things happen, how they communicate, how they direct, who they are accountable. how they integrate the reporting, how they do all these things. And I would say, by the way, CEO, do you know what CEO means? Chief Executive Officer. But in the future, CEO means Chief Endorphin Officer, which means that's the guy who has to fix the agenda in a way that the workers in the board and all the guys in the company having a happy working life. That means a lot. So just take that as a of note, so to speak. It's about hierarchy. Owners on the top, and sometimes you can think about state-owned entities if the owners are on the top, or is the CEO who's on the top. It's about the culture. And sometimes the CEO is the head of the board as well. And I'm talking about Sweden, not Azerbaijan. But maybe you have the same thinking here sometimes. So that's very important. So owner owns, board put in place, direct, CEO has the management. And then we have the auditors, like PwC, or EY, or Deloitte, or whatever, trying to figure out, is this a solid thing? Do we have good figures, good facts, good reporting, true and fair view, financial statements, etc., etc. So I would like you to this is so fundamentally, but I think today we are often get bogged down in big details of all these buzzwords of reporting, integrity, transparency, also accountability and responsibility, and they are very important. So don't hear me wrong, but the fundamental thing is who owns, who directs, what's the board, who's the CEO, who's the integrated thing. So this is the governance, owner, board, auditors, and CEO. But then we have management, which is very often twinked into, everything is about management, management control. It's a part of the corporate governance structure, yes, but it's not the thing. That is subordinate to the governance structure, because governance is about ownership, principal-agent relationships, and how those reports, and who gives the direction, who evaluate, who sets the standards, who requires the results, and who gets remuneration, etc., etc. Okay, so let us have those very clear. This means, if you take it into some bullet points, good corporate governance needs to have one, open mind, open social intelligence, competitive advantage. We need to understand what's happening out there in different industries, in different sectors, and so on and so forth. So that's number one. The question is, how do you get reports from around the globe what's happening in corporate governance? So you can get best practice on your table for selecting best option for you. Because good governance is about a global thing. Global best practice to be applied locally in Azerbaijan. Where do you come from? Where are you? Where are you heading? We need to take it in your situation, which means as well aspirational visions. We need to, where are we going in the governance system? Open society, open economy, open source, open data, everything is open, yes. What does it mean? Diversifying the economy, yes. Attractive for foreign direct investment, yes. How can our governance system be a part of that vision? It's essential. And I would say it's very evident that that is a very big thing for countries today, to showcase that the governance system of the companies, not only in the stock exchange, but also those who are owned by the state or a city, has a great structure, great governance model, clearance in reporting, and also when it comes to setting the direction, evaluation, reporting, integration, accountability, that is in place. A part of that is, where are we going? What aspirations do we have? Which is vision. Second, we need a mission, a clear value proposition. What are we doing? What are we trying to accomplish with this company? Of course, it's the owner's topic, it's the board's topic to say, okay, what are we trying to achieve? What's the purpose with having this business? Purpose is very important for people, for cities, governments, and corporates. Energizing leadership, who create passion. As I said, the CEO, Chief Endorphin Officer, is important. And also it's about create meaning for those people. Create energy to do something, to get the most out of them, to have a daily peak performance, you can say. It's not easy, no it's not, but no one promised us that life should be easy, so that's why we are here, trying to take the next step in the circumstances we have. Clear values, strategic inner guidance, and also values linked into the culture of the company, culture of the country, culture of governance. At the same time challenging ourselves to do next step. We constantly need to challenge our values, our behavior, our actions, our thought, our speech, and that creates the culture. So I would say put high ambitions up there when it comes to how we should transform. Governance structure has said, transparent value reporting, I've said, and the value reporting must be a holistic reporting. A lot of different dimensions. Finance is just bottom line. Social, innovation, environment, and other things are, as I think, they have the same relevance in the future as finance has today. Of course, we need to be profitable, but that's a bottom line as well. Management control need to be defined, a purposeful process, you can see it here. You get all these documentations, you don't have to go through it all. But it is about influencing the organization and the direction towards vision and goals. In those areas you've said, this is important. Maybe performance, maybe efficiency, maybe quality, maybe environment. Whatever scorecard you have put in place, that's the direction. And you have to influence the decision making. If you give people 2 cheap things, they will have more. Which means if you have the wrong price, in turn, transfer pricing for example, if they have the wrong transfer price, you will come up with a devastating thing. If you have the right transfer price, you can influence the right behaviors and decision making. So that's governance in a nutshell. Corporate culture you need to have an understanding of, which is a definition from Merriam-Webster. It's a 100-year-old definition, by the way. I love it, because it's about the integrated pattern of thought, speech, and action, and the way to get close to a certain situation, which means what's my attitude towards governance? What's my attitude towards governance, openness, transparency, accountability, and so on and so forth? That constitutes the conditions for could we be able to manage through a modern, transparent system or not? And the way to learn and transfer knowledge to the next generation. Next generation, we have a lot in this room. That's culture. To create the legacy, as for us being older, not to consume it. We should create the legacy, give it over, you should run with it and increase it even more. That's the task. That's what we call stewardship. Take care of for others' account. And take care of for others' account means to steward, manage and control this piece of property for the owners, which could be private shareholders, or it could be a government who owns the piece. We need an increase of the value of each and every share in the company, broken up in finance, social, etc., etc. But of course, to the end of the day, it's about what's the substance in the balance sheet. And that substance could be different. And sometimes I think, and we have done some reports about that in Sweden, if you have a strong corporate social responsibility approach, you have higher profit. That's kind of interesting. If you care about nature, people, knowledge, you get better finance. If you focus too much on finance, you get worse finance. That's interesting. So it's a holistic approach. It's integrated because it's about being there, out there. And I would say sometimes I challenge the stock exchange companies and the corporates in Sweden. And I say, why are you talking so much about the environment? Why? And I say, well, it's because of there's a demand. Yes. What demand is it? Well, it's the customers. Okay, yes. But maybe it's also the owner's demand. So it's just a strategy for earning more money. We have to be honest about what's the motivation of caring for people, caring for nature, caring for creation, caring for environment. And if boards and governments and CEOs in private companies say, this is it, we really want to take care about this thing. If it's oil and gas industry in Nigeria, or it was what the thing would happen with BP out there in the US, I think the honest thing, we are very sorry this happened, but we have a transparent point of view. The truth sets people free, so to speak, and that's what I like. So I think that is a very good thing to bear in mind with culture. Second point for today, we need a new map. This is the traditional map, but maybe this is the map of the future. It's the same map, it's just another perspective. My challenge to you is, how do you make a mental shift when you look upon your company, your organization, your governance system? Take it from another angle and say, wow, this is interesting. That's another way to look upon it. I think we need to stretch our mindset to get daily mind teasers about how to challenge our thinking outside the box and inside the box. There's a risk with all kind of topics, including corporate governance, that it will be recycling old shit. Recycling. We are not called to recycle old stuff. We are called to do innovation and apply new knowledge in a better way than before. I think that's the challenge. That's why we need to have these maps. Maybe I should take this, go for. Which means, in today's world, we have a lot of trends. And you can question if it should be a mega trend, that's what we used to say, or a giga trend, or a terra trend. It should be 2R here, not terra trend. I think trends today in global society, like globalization, globalization, financial crisis, urbanization, and even urbanization, as you can see here. Urbanization is moving into urbanization. What does that mean? It means connecting the urban to the rural areas with new technology, new transportation, and new mechanisms. Going from transportation into mobility. It's a very important trend in Azerbaijan. Competition goes into co-opetition. We both compete and collaborate at the same time. Ericsson competing with some segments, in some other segments they are collaborating with the same company. Could be Cisco, could be Nokia. How could we, in a governance structure, understand, public or private owned, that that's the new map? That's the new reality in a constant uncertain world, because that is what it is. And we have to think through. I give you, and now you can take this from the net on PwC, World Watch. It said something about business intelligence and also global risks. Should we consider risks as black swans event? Or should we mitigate risk and be more thoughtful and think about creating those black swans into gray swans, which means it's doable? If we know there will be constant environmental catastrophes, social catastrophes coming everywhere, we cannot say, well, it was a black swan event. No, it's a part of the new reality. So the new normal is not certainty, the new normal is uncertainty, which means I have to be certain in uncertainty. Our CEO, Dennis Nally, said last week, the most important thing to me is to be certain when I'm uncertain. To be secure in insecurity. That's the CEO's, that's the owners, that's the board's role in this very fragile, tricky environment in doing business. New technologies, experience society, climate change, demographic shift, etc., etc. It's a lot of megatrends. The question is, what does that mean for my company? Because we need to figure out what's the hands-on practical implication for me when we talk about trends. To me, it's very relevant. Individualization means you need a totally new leadership who energize people. It's not one size fits all. Forget it. You need to be also into social responsibility, because if not the value system are right, the young people will leave. Why are For example, Google moving from UK, their head office in Europe, to Zurich in Swiss. Because young people, young talented entrepreneurs would like to live in Zurich. Before, in the old map, old days, people follow the company. Today, the company follows the people. It's a dramatic change because of megatrends, because of individualistic thinking. I'm not saying egoistic, but individualistic thinking. The corporates need to understand, where do we go? Where do we find our talents who would like to work with us? What's the environment? Shouldn't it be New York City? 10, 12 million? No, it's okay with 400,000 in Zurich because it's environmental friendly. You can swim, you can ski, you can do everything. Safe transportation, everything is in complete, full, and perfect order. To me, it's a sign in the sky that things happen as we speak. So collaboration, competition. I think you, Azerbaijan, your company, competing for talents, citizens, people, money, venture capital, events, and also I would say recognition and entrepreneurs. That's a global thing. We need to see how do we attract these people. There's a lot of talking about different types of society. Hunter society with wild animals, agriculture, industrial information, knowledge, experience society, etc. My point is, yes, these societies we have. And they are living side by side constantly, all the time. We still have an agriculture society, at least in Sweden, at least in Europe. 50% of the European Union's budget goes to what? Subsidiaries in agriculture. Of course, we have an agriculture society. So, the point is, we need to say this is a parallel processes, but its impact is huge on industry, huge in governance. Because if people are living in an experienced society and like excitement all the day, that means something for governance. It means something for leadership. It needs something for how do you organize the workflow. And what it means with with experienced society. If you look into Rolf Jensen, who is a professor of the Danish Business School in Copenhagen, he says, the experienced industry where vision and dreams is the most important thing as an asset, says something about the future. Visions about the future is one of the most important things when we're standing here today. Which means that the big markets in this, I would say, experienced society is adventure, fellowship, care, who am I, peace of mind, and convictions. Which means the leadership in your company, including yourself, need to fulfill its task and purpose to create a meaning of these areas. Adventure, fellowship, care, identity, and so on and so on. And not least convictions. The great story to tell about my company has to do with not only profit, but it has to do with, of course, corporate social responsibility, and corporate human responsibility, and corporate innovation responsibility. It's a holistic approach, a good story to tell, which means you can have a good story to sell. And it's about story selling. It's not storytelling. It's story selling for each and every company owned by government or owned by private, smaller, or on a stock exchange. Things you can't see, they have a greater value than things you can see. So IC, which means intellectual capital, is the most important thing for the future. So we need a new map again, a new thinking, and here is a summary of a lot of work being done by distinguished professors around the globe. One of them is Leif Edvinsson in Hong Kong and Lund. He worked with PwC and as a subcontractor. And I would say intellectual capital can the most important angle of that is the relationship capital. Relationships has to do with connectivity. But connectivity has to do with cables, like the cable here. That's connectivity. But contactivity has to do with brains, minds, and hearts. So contactivity is connecting people into a new knowledge flow in a knowledge navigation process, which is very important to understand in the corporate governance structure. The future is about knowledge navigation, business intelligence, and then you need to figure out how does this apply to our vision, what's the trends coming from the outside. So trends coming from the outside, creating the conditions for the visions coming from the inside needs to meet. And that creates thinking of how can we go around this roadblock or this opportunity. Which means relationship capital on three dimensions. Number one, society level. Azerbaijan, as a level of business intelligence, as a level of openness, as a level of getting new information from around the globe, and giving out, taking in, a flow. Second, organizational level, city of Baku, or a corporate company, private owned here, or a government owned. How is the organization structure? How is the flow of knowledge and intellectual and intangibles between our company and the surrounding world? Because most of the things is not at the same spot as I am today. It's out there. For example, when we talk about financing infrastructure project in Sweden, I say, the money is not in Sweden. The money for this project is probably in Middle East. And if you're in Middle East, the money is probably not here, probably in the US or in Asia. Or if you are in Africa, the money for this railroad is probably not here, it's in China. And that's how it is. How do we relate countries, corporates, and third, individuals in a network so we get good intelligence, good business opportunities, so we're being informed about what's happening is important, which means relationship capital on each and every level. When I did the project called Dubai Strategic Plan 5-7 years ago, one of the most important things was to figure out what is the direct flights between other cities around the globe and Dubai. Why so? Because this has to do with the flow of knowledge and intellectual capital and relationships between Dubai and, for example, Kuala Lumpur or New York. Direct flight is a key issue to leverage and boost and have an exponential value creation if you get the right connections. So this gives you a little teaser about how important these things are, being strategic outside, so to speak, the daily operations, but we need to be strategic in our thinking to see the new patterns, the new flows, the new models, and so on and so forth. So the most of the assets are hidden, as we know. It's a good example of intangibles. I will say something about innovation system, because I think each and every company, private or public owned, needs to be a part of the innovation system. That has to do with the opportunities for the country and the future. If we would like to decrease unemployment, if we would like to increase the knowledge, if we would like to increase innovation, if we would like to create a more sustainable environmental situation, we need to say, okay, let's not work only on innovation, which is a very good thing, but let's think about, on a higher level, the innovation system. And what are the stakeholders in an innovation system? I would say, wherever I go, from Silicon Valley to Berlin, to Stockholm, to here, to Hyderabad in India, or in Shanghai in China, or in Christchurch in New Zealand, it's the same topic. We need, in this system, start to see that central government play a role with policy, cities play a role with having who owns the ground, so to speak, that we should build a university campus or a startup community or something else. Private sector needs to be there because they need to link up the universities and the innovations in their industry. Venture cap has to be there because they have to see how can we finance the future. When Skype, how many knows what Skype is? Raise your hand. Skype, yeah. It's a Swedish invention. That company left Sweden after quite some years because the innovation system was maybe not good enough to absorb innovation and create market and to have the right capital base. The same with SoundCloud and other interesting companies coming from Sweden, my home country. Just examples. The point is, we need to create a collaboratory, literally. Think about a room with all these stakeholders interacting on an open source data, open minds, open information, open innovation, and try to say, well, how can we do something here? That is why PwC created what we call an acceleration program. We take clients to meet with venture cap in Asia or in US, in biotech and high-tech areas, and try to help them to accelerate and go to the next area of innovation. That's very important. But the point here is, think about innovation system with all these stakeholders into play on a national level or on the local level. And what's your role in that system? How can you connect dots in this system? Finally, I would say that this is a slide I should have had earlier, but it links us to the importance of active ownership in private sector, in public sector. There are three questions. Number one, why do we own this company? What's the purpose and the mission? Second, how do we govern, direct, and manage and control? Okay? And third, what is the new multidimensional scorecard for SOEs or for a private company in the future? I would say that without a total clear idea about why we own it, we shouldn't own. And then we need different processes. This is an example of a governance process. How do you nominate people to the board? Very important. We need a solid open process. This is the way we do it. This is taken from Sweden, from Swedish public companies. This is the way they do it. Could be good practice, could be best practice, yes, could be, maybe not. It's just for your consideration. This is about the scorecard of the future. I would say independent, if it's a private or public owned company, private capital or government capital. I predict that these 4-5 dimensions is the bottom line for each and every one. Growth and finance, sustainability on environment, innovation to take the next step of industry process, public service to create wealth and welfare, because wealth and welfare could be created by public money or by private money. What happened in the US when the police department published open source data on crime on the web, the crime percent decrease, because now private companies figured out things to offer to the market, so crime was decreasing. That's wealth and welfare, coming from underneath, coming from nowhere. Yes, because data was available, creativities came in, GPS, spotting systems, whatever it was, things changed. So wealth and welfare is not just coming from government. It's a PPP, private-public partnership, in many new dimensions than we think. We think it's about financing an infrastructure project as a bridge. That's fine, but that's not the only thing. It's about PPP, it's about people, profitability and planet as well, PPP, but it's private-public partnership in many dimensions. And there's a social dimension, creating jobs. All countries need to create jobs. And I would say big companies, private or public, have a bigger responsibility to create jobs, because they can absorb and they can act as mentors for smaller companies or for private people, students, and in-source them to do good stuff, to help them, to kick off, to create market and to let them go. Then they can have a stake, they can have equity, but the attitude should be, how can they act as a part of the innovation system so they can help the country, public and private side, to create jobs, to do better, and to absorb innovation and to take social responsibility. Let me end with a very important thing. What's happening today is, I would say, we are moving towards a new industrial logic. And this logic is about, I mean, this is the history. Industries around the globe in transportation, cosmetics, finance, in assurance, and you can mention automotive, aviation, defense, healthcare, all these industries. Great, of course. Then, today, we look upon it like this. We look at it like clusters. More of the same, more healthcare, more ICT, more bio. We have life science cluster, bio clusters, ICT clusters, financial clusters. But still, it's more of the same. It's the same type of companies being clustered around to create critical mass. And that is important. But I tell you, we analyzed 39,000 mergers and acquisitions in Europe and tried to understand who is buying whom and why and for what reason. We can see now a totally new pattern. You can find this report. It's a PwC European Commission report on future of industries. And it says like this: the new industries are creative industry, well-being industry, mobility industry, eco-industry, and food and water industry. Food and water industry is a much, much different industry than agriculture, I tell you. Because today, with DNA manipulation, you can grow a steak. You can grow a steak. That has something to do with food. So it's a totally new environment for this industry. And the point is, they are not industry-based, they are issue-based. So issue-based clusters are the future. That's what I'm thinking. We have a client in Lund in Sweden. They have taken as the vision to solve the diabetes problem in a way. They would like in 2 years' time use a cell phone to apply to the skin and to get the results of the sugar level in your blood. That will probably be happening. But if you take that issue, what kind of industries do they need in that house to recreate and to resolve that issue? Biotechnology, ICT, finance, cell phone, material science, they need all industries. It's a totally new clustering. Issue-based. The question is for Azerbaijan and Baku, what are the issues here? The issue here is environmental friendly energy. As they said yesterday, at least, the speakers before me. So if that's the case, it means that the renewable energy is a big issue to diversify the economy out from oil and gas. And then you probably need to insource talent to the country, link it up with your great team in your energy sector to figure out future. We should not talk in the future about outsourcing, because outsourcing is if you like to get rid of something, you outsource it. But if you have a smart mind, you insource. Working on the same platform, same vision, same attitude, same values. So this is the final thing. The new emerging industries on the left, and also the most important enabling industries, because without strong finance, without strong ICT and strong renewable energy, that will not happen. Which means all cities, all countries need fiber optics everywhere to create new companies, mobility-based, for youngsters who can create wonderful apps, sell to Google, earn a fortune. It's a new logic of how do we create jobs. Together with the old way we create jobs, of course. Again, we have all the societies living parallel, side by side. So it's, on the one hand, yes, it's very new. On the other hand, no, it's not so new. Correct. The question is, how can we have both strategies in our minds? So I will end with just saying, we need innovation. This is from the Philippines. It's a good innovation. And this is also a good innovation, by the way. This is from the Middle East. It's the donkey carrying the Wi-Fi. So tourists could tweet on the donkey. If you need to have a strong tourist industry, you need a strong ICT, as I said. It's a global thing. But let me end with say to you, if you ask the right questions, which means don't only pick low-hanging fruits and say, how many seeds are there in an apple? That's the traditional one. And it's about 6 to 12 seeds in an apple. Okay, we pick some low-hanging fruit. But my point is, we should ask the question here in Azerbaijan, how many apples are there in a seed? And that's a little bit more. It's indefinite. It's about innovation. It's about creating a culture on this particular ground called Azerbaijan and Baku, which means we have to put the tree upside down. And creating the culture of the future, the culture of innovation, and nurture and fertilize the root system of how do we create the future. When it comes to open, great, reliable governance system or innovation systems, open source, open data, open society, or whatever it is, go for best business intelligence when it comes to innovation in different industries. My challenge to you is, ask the right question, which open the minds and understand that there are many, many apples in the seed. Thank you very much.
Well, now we are open for your questions and discussions, if there is any.
Please.
Yeah, please.
Kamal och jag arbetar här i SAM. Först och välkomna till Azerbaijan, till SAM. Och jag måste säga det var väldigt bra tal igår. People really woke up, so I'm switching to English to ask my question. Think that the corporate government will embrace the notion, well, worldwide and as you say globally, will embrace the notion of corporate social responsibility without any kind of part of values. They're not much of understanding of corporate social responsibility yet in all this structure.
Ability will be, right now it's not, but it will be a part of the DNA system for profitable businesses, which means we need to, I think we're living in a kind of a period of transition right now. When companies go to different new territories around the globe, it could be oil and gas, or it could be high-tech industry, it doesn't matter. Then they say, well, we're going in here, but if we should go in here, we need to show how good we are, so we will also give you a hospital or a upcoming, not upcoming, but in our discussions already, have had for a long time. How do we pay back to society in our business model we didn't get before to accelerate them? That is a profitable business model, but the result of that business model is growth. That's good, don't hear me wrong, it's good, but it's not a sustainable business model. So when business comes robust, that's what I hope. And that has to be regulation in place, absolutely, on various levels.
Maybe my question would be in some sense a repeat. Maybe it is time to make mandatory for them to share certain money.
And say, today we have 90% focus on growth, financial capital, return on investment, financial capital. Honest and pure responsibility when it comes to absorb new technologies, new innovations, new things. The big companies, they should work much closer with approach. So I would say it's about having a stronger and bigger vision for what we are here for, which means long-term countries making new decisions applying an innovation and entrepreneurial act, Tory unquote thing. From whatever I have read about Enron, when it comes to that has been public displayed in the court case. And I think word, it should be culture. Second, it should be, I mean, it links to culture as well, because if you have a culture of not being accountable, responsibility, responsiveness, that's business as usual. But in this case, get a right.
I have a request, if possible, please. When you ask a question, if you may introduce yourselves, because we as PwC are very interested in. Basically, it's really easy. And also, I'd like to make one comment. When it goes back to the corporate responsibility and examples of how a big company can do it, today I'm glad to see the members of the PwC Talents Club here sitting. Welcome to the master class. This is a project by PwC Azerbaijan, and it is about teaching the young talented people with the business toolkit for about 6 months, and this is free of charge. Probably some of the people that are representing big companies here are aware about this project, but this is exactly how it's done. This is the corporate responsibility. You invest in people. It's not necessarily finance or money or donation or anything in kind. This is your time, this is your knowledge and experience, because that is the capital of PwC, which we are very proud of. So, as an example, thank you.
Yeah. Let me also solution and responsive business and the whole approach to what we call the PwC Academy, which is, in a way, linked up to a next generation. That's fantastic. So it's very important. Please, go on.